Welcome to Season 2 of Producer Points. My name is Justin Gammella, and I'll be your host. I'm a producer and songwriter who's had the honor of working with some of the best in the industry. This season, we're diving even deeper into one-on-one conversations with producers, mixers, songwriters, and artists, exploring their unique journeys, creative process, and insights that shape great music. Join me for real talks, straight from the studio, where music and life intersect. This is Producer Points. Welcome to a new episode of the Producer Points Roundtable podcast. Today we're going to be talking about building a sustainable career in music and production. Building a career in music production isn't just about making great tracks. It's about staying relevant, adapting to industry changes, and turning creativity into a sustainable business. Early on, producers faced a ton of challenges. Financial instability, like working for free, inconsistent income, figuring out how to actually make money, breaking into the industry, building credibility, landing placements, and finding your first real opportunities, and longevity. Once you get a break, how do you keep things moving and stay ahead of trends? A lot of producers think success means one viral moment or one big placement, but that's not what makes a long-term career. Today, we're talking about what it really takes to build something sustainable, from business strategies to adopting an ever-changing industry. Joining me today are two incredible producers who've each built their own paths. Our first guest today is Midi Jones, a versatile producer with an impressive catalog spanning pop, R&B, and hip-hop, known for his adaptability, consistency, and ability to craft chart-worthy records. Midi, dude, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, man.
Next, we have Sarcastic Sounds, a.k.a. Jeremy. How the fuck do you say your last name? Fedrick, don't even bother. But Jeremy, our producer and artist blending lo-fi, hip-hop, and indie influences from viral success to long-term artistry. He successfully balanced both the producer and artist worlds. Dude, Jeremy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. As you know, big fan of the show.
Yeah, I know. Your episode, we don't have the date of when it's going to be dropping, but your episode is dropping this year for this season 2 of Producer Points. So I think our listeners are going to be stoked. I haven't sent it to you yet because I'm still editing it, but was truly one of my favorites. I think you're just like so different than like the typical producer. You had such a unique, way to like get up. It's crazy. I'm so excited for people to hear your story. And like, honestly, dude, I think Midi's story last season was like the highlight ever, like how his come up came. I got so many messages from that be like, Midi's story is fucking nuts. Like, this guy's crazy. So it's kind of funny that you guys are both here, just like considering you had really cool stories coming up.
Let's go.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. So like I said earlier in the intro, today we're talking about how we can have longevity in being music producers. It is one of the toughest jobs to really make a long career out of. We see producers that some only have 2-year careers, some have 5-year careers, some are able to have 30, 40-year careers. I mean, those are the exception to the rule a lot of the time. But I wanted to ask you guys, and Midi, why don't you go first? But like, what does like longevity and sustainability mean to you?
To me, honestly, if you can like get up in the mornings and make music every day, regardless of what that looks like, to me is success personally. I know a lot of people, it's just like, I need to be on the chart. And like, if I'm not on the Hot 100 producer charts, I'm not doing anything. But to me, at least, I've settled with that's my idea of success, and everything else is just extra because you can really ruin your day to day, like weighing in what you think your success is based off of like the comparison game, which just,
Yep.
it's inevitable a little bit. So to me, that's what it looks like. And however you can do that, I think it's a win.
I mean, the playing the comparison game is a losing battle. That's one you're never going to win. It's only going to make you feel worse. There's always someone who's one step ahead of you, no matter what. Like
100%.
And it's like, and I viewed longevity in the same way where I've always said, as long as I'm putting food on the table for now, I have a family, I'm able to like come into the studio here and do what I do every day and make music that I enjoy making and working with people that I enjoy working with. Like that to me is the key to like having a long and successful music career. Because yeah, like you said, if you're chasing hits, you're probably not going to be writing hits. And you're just gonna like want to kill yourself. Like as horrible as that sounds, it's just like it's a horrible long-term strategy. Jeremy, what does that mean to you?
I mean, yeah, of course. It's like, I think anyone that's been successful enough to be on this podcast is already like made it by just you're a professional producer, which is fucking crazy, obviously. And like it's a crazy even just phrase to say, like you push buttons and make sound effects for a living. Like it's nuts. So that is just success, of course. I think what you said is so true, because there is like, you can sneaky fall into a lane where like you are getting up every day and making music, but like shitty ass music that you hate. And that to me is then, what are we doing here? Because like just work an actual job that you hate if you're gonna hate it anyway.
Right.
So I think, yeah, being able to make music that you love or like every single day is like, yes, that, and anything beyond that is gravy. And I'm sure you guys can relate that. I'm sure the happiest moments of your careers are not the highest peaks of success. I think a lot of times those are like the most depressing times, because you're like, this didn't fill the void. What's going on here?
I've never been more stressed in sessions than when I had a song that was doing well for the first time.
Yeah.
100%. You're like, well, I got to capitalize on this, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
whatever. But even, or, you see whatever song it is doing like ridiculous numbers that you never would have ever thought were possible. And you're like, well, I feel the same as I did yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, like knowing what I know now after having like a song that did well, and how I didn't like react super well to like some things, because it was like, I was like, I'm getting my first taste of success here. I'm like, it's starting to come on radio. And, immediately I was like, again, I was playing that comparison game where it's like, why is that song getting this? And why, it's just like, we're human and it happens. And I had to learn to let go of those feelings, because they're so useless, and it was distracting me in my sessions. It was making me feel like, well, if this song isn't doing it, then this next one is going to do it. And like, and the second I, learned to let go of that, for me, it was like a couple months after my first kid was born, where I had some time to like reset. I took a couple weeks off from doing music, and I came back, and having that kid was such a grounding moment where I was like, oh, like this is what's most important, and like everything else is peripheral. And I'm just kind of, I get to make music every day and make music that I like. And Jeremy, even what you were saying, where it's like, you don't be making music you hate 1,000%. But I think sometimes people even, like there's like sync and there's other opportunities to make money, which we're going to talk about eventually. And people think they might hate doing that. But some of my favorite days are like, I do like random sync days and do random like, oh yeah, we're going to write a song for like a kid's movie. Like those are sometimes the most fun, because I'm just like so carefree and like, I don't know, like I don't do a ton of it, but when I get to do it, I'm just like, you know what, like this is, I don't know, I don't take myself too seriously, and it makes it more fun. Midi, do you have any like experience doing that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think it's one of those things where the idea of waking up and making something that you truly love is a luxury that most of us don't have if you're trying to pursue this, in my opinion. Like, we get to do it, but if your rent's due and you got to take a bad gig and you got to figure it out, like, even getting the gig is a luxury, in my opinion. And B, like, knowing how to get it is knowledge that, like, it's very, very scarce to figure out these resources of how to do it. But, like, days that feed your soul are different a lot of the times than days that feed like your body, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Today I had a homie pull up to make starts, and he pulled up with a bunch of guitar pedals, and we just nerded out for like 7 hours. And it's like such a fun time. And it's so great. And then there are other days where it's like, there's like a kid whose dad invented like a phone, and he wants to do a day with you, and it's going to pay for your next 3 months.
Yeah.
And it's just the worst thing you've ever done. And then it ends up usually like kind of sucking the life out of you, but it's important to do every now and again, because that could further the stuff that will feed your soul. So it's kind of this cycle where for everyone you give them, give one for you. And I feel like if you can learn how to balance it, you can have a career without hating your life. And also like, you can avoid the whole like, well, I should be working on things that I want to do every single day. And like if feeling down about that if you can't.
Dude, I just had a buddy of mine who's like a younger producer who's just kind of like getting his feet wet and like having some, starting to make like production fees and stuff. And he hit me up and he's like, yeah, I'm thinking about moving out to LA. And I just want to like ask, like, what do you like charge people for like Sound Better things? I don't know if you guys know what Sound Better is or our listeners know, but Sound Better is like a really great website where it's like, I say it's like where like quote amateurs can link up with quote professionals. I'm on there. I'll do a gig on there every once in a while. And he knows that. And he was like, how do you, basically what you're saying, like, how do you balance doing gigs like that pay well, that pay my rent, and also like doing these, maybe like smaller indie gigs that like pay next to nothing. And what I told him was, listen, man, like on Sound Better personally, like I'm at the level where I get to be like really choosy about who I work with on there. I'm very lucky where I get a lot of messages on there. I'll do one a month on there. And I make good money on it. And I would go crazy if I was doing more than one a month. But
Mhm.
that one a month, it's like it kind of like that covers my rent, that covers my kids' daycare, and it takes like such a load off me. And I said I do that because then I'm able to work on the projects that I'm super passionate about. That yeah, maybe the fee is as low as $500, $1,000, and but you have more back end, or it's like an artist that you're like, hey, I'm all in. I believe in you. I will work with for no fee, and I will take 25%, 50% of the back end. And I was telling them like that's what I do a lot of the time. Like these smaller artists that I know have no budget, but I'm like I'm fucking in like. Midi, exactly what you're saying there. It's a give and take where it's like, cool, I do projects. How you said it, it's like you got to feed yourself with these like projects that maybe aren't as like filling up your soul, so you
Mhm.
can do these other things. And there's
Yeah.
I try and tell people too. There's like there's no shame in that. I'm super open about like yeah, I do sound better gigs. I do like random paid gigs. Like I don't know why anyone would be ashamed of that. Like we're in an industry that like it sometimes takes 6 months to a fucking year to get a production fee from a major label. And like I can't rely on that, when I have active bills coming in.
Mhm.
Jeremy, what about you? Like you do you do any random gigs like that, or like what like how do you like to like kind of make sure the bills are paid?
Honestly, I like I have a lot of passive income
Yeah.
from like artist stuff and from a couple like songs I've done and stuff that have like has been like the biggest ever blessing.
Right.
So, I that I haven't necessarily had to like on I mean first of all, I'd like to amend what I said earlier because I do shit that I don't want to do very often as well. I
No,
guess
of
I'll amend
course.
my
Totally.
definition of success to basically what you guys are saying, which is making music every day and that being a vehicle to do things that you love rather
Yeah.
than doing shit you love every day,
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
course.
but Jeremy, like, let me say, like, because I was happy that you came on here because I wanted a producer who's also an artist perspective, where it's like, that's like your artist thing was and is like, that's how you're paying your bills. Like, I wish I had you know, I was talented enough, or like, I could be an artist and like do that thing, and because basically, were you self-releasing a lot of your stuff?
Why I thought I would be able to talk about this is I
Yeah,
have like I really don't think there's many people with a more diverse income stream than
yeah,
me
yeah,
for as a producer. But yeah, like I early on was self-releasing and what it was like just it happened to like stream super well and it was just on DistroKid. So I was just like
yeah.
rolling in it for a couple of years.
And
Like,
I just want to cut you off really quick for our listeners, if they don't know, if you're acting as your own label, self-releasing, right? The payout on the master side, not publishing, because publishing is still shit, but the payout on the master side, depending on the month on Spotify, is around $3,000 to $4,000 per million streams.
mhm.
So if you kind of do that math where you have a song that even gets like 10 million streams, that's like $30,000 to $40,000. That's not chump change. And then if the more successful, obviously, the more money you get. So I just wanted to let the listeners know that. But go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, no. So I was self-releasing for a while, and then I was on Columbia for like 3 years. I mean, made no money doing that. But except for the advance, obviously, but it wasn't that big. But yeah, and so like for the 3 or 4 years that I was self-releasing, and then the time I was like on a major label, like I was paying my bills with my back catalog of independently released stuff because obviously
Right.
didn't see any back end from being from a label. And then yeah, and then the past couple years is mainly from fucking Daylight Publishing. So, which is like my first time like seeing money from like publishing. It was definitely always master
Right.
stuff. Kind of as that has slowed down, the
Right.
publishing is so that's kind of picked up the slack. But yeah, anyway, so been very blessed to have like enough passive income that I can go through like stretches of just like,
Right.
doing
And
doing
that's like the dream of producers, and that's we're eventually gonna get to that too. That like passive income, where it's like, okay, once you start having songs on your belt that are always making you money, it's like you have
Mhm.
that passive income from either ASCAP or BMI, your PROs, or like it's not even much. Like people, are so obsessed with like master points, but it's like, man, they are not worth as much as you think, unfortunately. Again, unless
Yeah.
it's like, even when it's like a huge hit, it's just like you get some of those like statements from Sony or Republic or whatever, and you're like, oh, that's what my 4 points got me, and it's recouping
I,
against my advance. It
I,
There's a term I feel like every producer should know, and it's a term in a contract that's really small, and it's stand behind costs, and it will
Yep.
make your master points useless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yep. Yeah.
We all
Are we
talk about it.
are we talking about master points right now? Or
Sure,
is
go
that
Yeah.
for it.
to come
Let's
up
go for it.
like, I mean, just like comically shit. Like, as someone who has seen the money from the master royalties, like the fact that the discussion about master points would ever be coming from the producer share of master points, like to songwriters, is just so funny. Because it just,
Yeah.
the label takes like 80% of it, and actually way more because they're putting a ton of money up so that the artist will never recoup.
Yeah.
And yeah,
It's and that's what I was trying to say. Like a lot, like songwriters aren't trying to get like producers master points. It just ends up coming out of the producers or the artist because the label's like, well, it's not fucking coming out of mine, which is wrong.
Mhm.
And that's what I was like trying to educate, songwriters and producers about too. It's like, yes, like having a master point is great, but I think a lot of people think it's like this like magical thing that it's going to solve all of their financial problems if like songwriters are all getting like a point on a record. And it's like, I don't know how to tell you this, but it's not. It's like, it's really not. I've made, like, for my biggest song, I've not made that much relative to how much money the song has made. I've not made that much money on the master. I've made way more on the publishing.
Yeah.
So, it's a really hard thing. And then also, and it's a good time to this is like about building a sustainable, career in music industry. It's the ecosystem that the major label systems are set up to collect master royalties are all, in my opinion, purposefully based on really old, slow systems that make it so hard to track down and get paid. Uniport, the universal system, is the biggest piece of fucking garbage I've ever seen in my life. Like, and I'm curious, like, I know it's usually like managers handling that shit, but like, Midi, I'm curious, like, you have any experience like trying to track down your own fucking master points and stuff? Like, you have any funny stories you feel comfortable talking about?
Oh yeah, I mean, dude, like I preach this a lot. I think in almost every contract I've ever had with a major, it's like stand behind cost stuff, and
Yeah.
it's just like well over billion streams on stuff that I've worked on. I've never seen a master royalty on a major label project in my
Yeah.
career. I
Yeah.
think for anybody listening to this, typically, if it's a label thing and you get a point, the most value you're going to get out of it financially is when you sell that point, in my opinion. Whenever somebody's like, let's buy your catalog up and you can sell all your master points, that's where you'll get a bit of a bag if you have enough. But when you have an album cut on a major album that has 4 music videos and like all this artwork and promo, and you have to stand behind all of these costs, it doesn't matter if you got 50 million streams on one master point. Because what is 50 million streams? What's 1 million streams of, like, what is that?
50 million
300
streams,
bucks?
it comes out almost like $200,000, I believe, like, give or take. Right, and then
It's
if you
crazy.
get 1 point, right, it's just like it's
Yeah.
nothing.
You can't expect to make that back. It's just like it's hidden fees stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's just
Yeah.
stuff that you'll never expect to have to pay for. Like you're expected to pay for the facility that you work at, the gear you record on, and then on top of that, stand behind the cost of the people that you're working with, which doesn't make sense. I call it like this, which is basically how we function as people. You're a plumber. You're getting asked to go fix some stuff. You have to provide all of the tools, and then afterwards you have to pay for the repair as well, and hopefully somebody will kick you back some money at some point.
Right.
And then you have to go hound them for that. It's kind of how I think about it. It's the only job I know of where it functions like that. So to expect to kind of come in as, like, I don't know, there's shows about the music industry that make it seem like you go in, you make a hit, and then you're just paid.
Yeah.
And it's just like if the circumstances line up completely. So with master points, I think of it more as like a principal thing than more than like a let's go pay the rent with this today kind of
Yeah.
vibe. And it's just like, it's like retirement money later, like if you sell it in time, honestly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never, like, the amount of emails I've sent trying to track down like payments and being like, do you have any like anything here? Like, what are we doing? Like,
Mhm.
where was I going with that? Just God, I'm getting like so upset about it because it's like so much of my time is just
Yeah.
like trying to track down these master points. And that's what I was going to bring up. And you guys ever work with this label called Monster Cat?
I
Never
know.
have, but I used to listen to them. Yeah.
Yeah, Monster Cat. Like back in the day, I used to do like a lot of like EDM top lining and co-producing and vocal producing. And Monster Cat is set up so fucking well where they're the only fucking people that I have points on things that actually I see like they pay out monthly. I get like a
Mhm.
couple $100 every month from these guys from like records that came out a while ago and records that like aren't huge. You know, like between a couple, most of them they each have like a couple million. I have one that has like 100 something million streams, but I actually have the least amount of master on that. Funny enough, and it's like I just get annoyed because it's like they can do it. They have systems that is just like all automatic. And Monster Cat for our listeners is like a relatively newer label based in Canada, and I guess they just like maybe because they're Canadian, they just like actually care about paying out fairly, yeah, and like doing the thing the right way. It's really disheartening to see that it's like trying to it's the thing that like no one tells you about when you're becoming a producer, where it's like a large part of your job is trying to track down money that is rightfully yours. And again, it's not even back end royalties with master points. It's even trying to get fees sometimes. Just trying to get that done because it's always something that's being held up. Jeremy, and again, if you feel comfortable sharing, like you have any stories about like, without getting too specifics, that like just trying to get paid on something that took a while?
I mean, 100%. One, what you said about Monster Cat, I've never worked
Yeah.
with Monster Cat, but when I was an artist, like specifically when I was like really in like the swing of like doing my lo-fi thing, like I released through a lot of like independent labels like that, basically like labels that had formed from YouTube curators,
Right.
which are like run by like 24-year-olds in Europe. But agreed, like to this day, I get my quarterly payments directly deposited into my bank account on time, like full transparency always from all of those labels. I think part of it is that they, in my experience, are fucking the artists so bad on the split compared to what they do that they're like the least we can do is pay on time because we are just fucking raking it in, bro. Like a lot of those low, because they're doing like 50-50 splits and all they're doing is just posting your song on YouTube and that's their entire cost.
Right.
And they are just, some of those labels I think are making so much money.
Yeah.
But I agree, like nobody is like nobody is quicker to pay than like labels like that. And it
Yeah.
is
Mm.
I agree, Midi. Like I don't know. I can't think of another industry. I'm sure there are. We're just in it, so it feels that way. But like where all
Yeah.
of the biggest companies are the least professional. Like it's fucking crazy.
No, it's mostly our industry because it's like the same problem that songwriters have. It's
Yeah.
it's why everyone goes back and forth with like, should producers unionize? And it's like we're technically not allowed to unionize. This is educating not so much you guys but our listeners, because if we were to unionize, because we're all independent contractors, and if we all decide to band together, it's seen as like price fixing essentially. It's like it was a really dumb interpretation of the law under like the Reagan administration in the 80s. So it's why we can't kind of come together and bargain, and why, the closest thing is like screenwriters or actors, they're able to unionize and collectively bargain and get paid on time because they don't have these problems that we have. That's why it really is a pretty uniquely music industry problem, where it's like we there's like other industries where it's like you're an independent contractor, but like you're not dealing with these like huge conglomerates specifically. Like, like to use the plumber thing again, like if you're a plumber, you're an independent contractor, and if like you're mostly dealing with people, and like if you go to Sony's gonna pay that bill. They can't like boss around in like a fucking plumber. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's
Mhm.
God, it's really insane. And I honestly, I have the only advice I can give to deal with all that is just have patience and
Yeah.
have a good lawyer and manager when you can. I kind of wanted to go on to the first like topic with all this. We're gonna kind of go step by step into like building a music producer career. I have this one I wrote, getting started, establishing foundations. Jeremy, I'll start with you, man. When you were first starting out, what were some of your key habits and like daily practices that you were doing in your early production career and artist career?
Well, I was actually just talking with a couple of my friends the other day about like who are also around my age and have like been relatively successful and stuff. And we were just talking about how like lucky we were to have basically done like these like grind every day, like struggling artist thing while like still living at home with our parents to like, so that just like allowed me to just do. I was able like to turn it into a career before like having any real life obstacles, to be honest.
Go into that
Anyway,
like daily, grinding thing. Talk about that a little bit. What was that
yeah,
like?
so that's what I was just gonna say is like I feel like
Yeah.
the beginning of my career, like I just all I did was just like I was just like so desperate to be heard in any sort of capacity that I would just spend every second of free time that I had just like trying every genre I can trying every avenue of to get, whether it's sending it to, a monster cat or sending it to Instagram pages to use or whatever, just finding any sort of avenue to use. And I feel like I was doing all of that without thinking about money or thinking about trying to monetize it. And I feel like you spoke on that earlier of just like if you're trying to make a hit, you're not going to make a hit.
Right.
And I think what like the reason I was able to turn music into a career is because I was able to just like do and like I just wanted my music to be heard. And then I was feel like I was like then then opportunities come and then you can figure out how to monetize it. I feel like that was kind of vague. I'm not sure, but
No. I mean, had you because I think one of the things I know your story because we had a whole podcast about it, but
yeah.
you were just constantly shooting your shot. I mean, like, where did you get that confidence or even that idea to be like, fuck it, I'm just gonna send my music out there and see what happens?
I just feel like I'm sure you guys have this too. Like I feel like people who create art, you just have like a thing inside of you that's like, I will be fucking depressed for the rest of my life if people don't hear my music, if I'm not like, it's just like something, I don't know, like in turn, I wasn't like, I'm so great. I was just like,
Right.
I have this void inside of me that can only be filled by people hearing my art, you know? So, and I feel like that's where I was operating from early in my career before it was ever, I want to make money from my art. I would have been, in my mind at least, I would have been thrilled for millions of people to hear my music and for me to be broke. That was like my dream, and then you
Right.
realize you can earn money doing it. But
Right. You get to do both.
yeah.
Yeah, Midi, what about you? What would you say were some of like your first like habits and daily practices that made you become a music producer full time?
Man, honestly, it was one of those. I have a very unique like way of
Yeah.
having gotten into it a little bit, so I
We
won't say
we
this is
all
like
do. We all do.
yeah, yeah. For me, it was pure necessity, to be honest with you. And I've touched upon this in our episode, but like I was like I'm the only dude I know where I wasn't like that. Where I have a lot of people in my life, especially when I was younger, that were bitter failed musicians, and it's the worst thing in the world to look at when you're from the outside looking in. So I was like, I don't want to be that, but due to circumstances, I just like it was the only real option and it was the only real skill that I had because it was like a hobby as a kid. So it was just like, I have to do this. Like, if I don't do this, there's nothing that really kind of gets you out of bed than like necessity. Like when you feel like you have to, it'll light a fire under your butt really quickly. And so for me, it's just like numbers a little bit. I read this book when I was a teenager on the law of averages. So I did the math a little bit. If I'm doing 2 to 4 sessions a day, I'll land 2 to 4 a week potentially doing this, like on average. Like sometimes it's lower, sometimes it's more. And when I was young, I would just like pure numbers. I used to do cues for TV, like whenever you hear a horribly tasteless orchestral dubstep song with
Yeah.
the Kardashians having a fight and going in the
Yeah.
house. That was me for like a while. But I would do like 10 or 20 of those a day for like a
Dang.
while. So I was trash as a producer when I was a kid. Like I didn't I think what you were talking about, Jeremy, is a real artist mentality, which is like, I really need the world to hear me. A lot of producers, especially, are nerds who sit in their rooms and don't show anybody anything
Yeah.
ever. And that's
Yeah.
a big issue I have with a lot of my homies that are still trying to figure it out, where I'm just like, dude, like, you're amazing. No one knows who you are.
Yeah.
No one's heard this ever. And you're not trying to make people hear it. There is this a little bit of there can be a disconnect, I think, a little bit. The idea of I'm dope versus I'm being heard. They're not the same thing, in my
Right.
opinion. Good practices, in my opinion, as far as a technical standpoint, is just consistency. You're going to suck for a while until you get kind of okay, until you get better, until you just forget about all that. And then you look up one day and you're like, oh, I'm like not that bad.
Yeah.
Or somebody tells you that and you realize it usually. But I think the idea of like success in the music industry isn't even necessarily like, How dope. I saw Alex said something like, if you're making great shit, like it doesn't matter what you're using. And that's
Yeah.
super true. That's like such a small percentage of the community that we're in, of people who are just like so undeniably good. It's usually people that like they get discovered super early on.
Yeah.
Everybody else, in my opinion, is you knew how to make a friend really well a lot of the times. And you were dope enough that that person was like, you should come to this session really quick.
Yeah.
And you should come to this thing. My old mentor told me something when I was 17, 18, before I ever got a cut. I was a nerdy EDM kid myself. I made dubstep out here. So it's just like one of those things where the supply and demand was really low. So I had this like kind of in, but he told me this thing that changed my life where he's like, nobody will ever hire you just because you're dope unless you're the best. They'll hire you because you're really dope and they like you.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people kind of get messed up. I've even had people tell me like, my plan is to be so good that I can be an asshole. And they start like mentioning like Steve Jobs and shit like that. I'm like, okay, great for you. That's an awesome strategy. But like, I don't think I can bank on that.
I don't think you can do that in a collaborative work environment like we have, right? Like, I
Totally.
think you can
Yeah.
be a dick when you're like running a conglomerate or you're running a company and like you're in charge. But
100%.
like, I think people who are dicks who are really talented have very short careers. You see it
You and
all
I probably can think of, oh, sorry, my bad. Go for
No,
it.
no, no. That's what I said. Yeah, it's like we all know who those people are, and we all know it's
Mm.
like you meet these guys who have like, 15, 20, 30-year long careers, and you hang out with them, and you're like, oh, you're a genuinely great human. And it's like, yeah, of
100%.
course. Because no one, and I mean no one, wants to work with someone who's so difficult often. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it's not a good, long-term career thing. Hey gang, I just wanted to pop in here to let you know that the best way you can help this podcast grow is to rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts. It tells the algorithm to push our show to other listeners so we can grow, and it's one of, if not the best way to help support this podcast. So if you wouldn't mind, take a second to rate this podcast. Sharing it with your friends would be amazing too. All right, back to the pod. I got my start, what I tell people is you just have to do the thing. You have to get your reps in. You have to do it no matter what. I got my start later. I've been doing music my whole life, but I went to college. I got my degree. I was working a regular job. I was always in bands. I was always doing the thing. And, after I've been working my job for a little bit, I was like making music for like local artists in Buffalo where I was living at the time. And a guy, I met him and he had an in. He's like, hey, like, I have an in like with like some people who do sync stuff. Like, I think you're talented. Would you want to do that? And I was like, fuck yeah, I want to do that. And my life at the time, I was working my ass off. I was working 2.5 jobs. Like I had 2 jobs and then I was also like babysitting every once in a while. And my 4th job was like doing music whenever the fuck I could. And that's what it was. I was working 10 hours a day, sometimes 12, 15 hours a day. But the rest of those hours I was doing and making music. And we made so many, kind of like you, Midi, like with like, oh, you heard it on the Kardashians. It was like me. It's like you might have heard like a weird folk song on an Applebee's commercial. But I was doing a bunch of those. And from that, we kind of made a band, and that's what got me to be a professional music career. But that's just what I tell people is that you just got to do it. Yanni AP, who's a mixer, who I think we've all maybe worked with before.
Shout out the boy.
Yeah, fucking Yanni's the best. Yanni had great advice on his episode. He's a mixer, but it's the same thing applies, where he was just like, you just got to mix records. It doesn't matter if you do it for free. You just have to always be doing it. And then eventually someone is going to hear it. It doesn't matter if you got paid for it or not, but that someone who heard it will probably pay you to do the next thing. And I think the more you see your career where, God, I see like there's so much like stupid ideas on like threads and Twitter and stuff where, I think people just say stupid things just to like start traction on a post or whatever. But, there's like, I won't mix something for less than $200 no matter what. And it's like, what have you done that you can even charge? Like, what do you mean? Same thing with like producers there. It's like, I will not do a beat for you unless you pay me. And it's like, what have you done? Like I'm all for people getting paid, but it's like, that's not the reality in our industry, and unfortunately. And, and it's the same thing. Like we always, if you want to be heard, you got to be heard somehow. And unfortunately that means like doing a lot of free shit and just having go ahead, Midi.
I had a really good kind of workaround when I was first starting because nobody knew who I was, like in general, let alone in music.
Yeah.
But I used to do this thing that worked really well for me and helped me get out of like my like desolate financial situation at first, which is like I had a choice between I had this like little really crazy shitty lockout, and I didn't have enough money to pay for that and my apartment. So I had to make a choice. I'm like, which one am I going to switch off of? So I got rid of the apartment and sold anything in it, and I paid for the studio for a year. And I was like, I got to do this, and this before I get out of this. And I used to do this thing that helped me out a lot. And I feel like this worked if you're confident in your job. I would go to open mics and go to people I thought were really talented that didn't have anything going on. And I would say, I would love to write a song for you for free. I will produce it, write it with you, mix it, master it, and you can put it out for free if that's all you want to do. If you want to do one song, if you want to do more than one song, here's like a 5-song package deal. And the first song will be in that, and it's this much, and you have to pay for half up front. But one session for free, you'll have a finished song or as much as we can do in the day, and then you can put it out and we'll just split it. I never once had someone just take the song, like ever. It was such a it was a great way to do it, because the thing that scares people is what you just said, which is like most of us don't make money at first, at least. So to ask people like what you just said, nobody knows who I am, nobody knows who you are. Pay me though. It's just not. It's not how it works.
No,
it's scary.
Right.
Yeah.
I once got into like a very stupid, and I don't do Twitter arguments anymore, but like with someone where it's like, yeah, but people should pay you for your stuff. It's like, buddy, you're missing the fucking point. Like,
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
I agree with you, but like, you're not going to be able to start your career unless like people hear your shit. And it's just like something this kid was like so like headstrong about it, and it's like, well, I'm gonna tell you, man, like you live your life and probably not have any success, unfortunately, and move on with it. I wanted to move on to the next topic here. Jeremy, I wanted to start with you because this one is kind of like diversifying income streams. And you were saying like, yeah, you have a really diverse income, a bunch of different things coming in. So go into that a little bit. Where are you making money from different things?
Yeah, like I was saying before, like producer fees aren't like the primary source of my income. Like obviously it is like a notable percentage of it, but like I would be fine without any producer fees. And yeah, so one is, and this isn't a producer thing, but my artist back catalog like still does pay some money. I've also, which I think is maybe a little bit unique to me, I'm sure there's other producers that are like this, obviously, but like the majority of the people that I work with and that I have worked with and that like I've seen the most success with as a producer are independent artists, but like who are like successful enough to be major label artists, and like points on those records like are really valuable. And I've made like way more money from those, even though they might not. Yeah, right. Exactly. That they might not be. I mean, in my case, also it is the most successful things that I've done. But like, even if they were a quarter of as successful, it would be way more money than I've ever made from points from major label songs, of course, because of what we were talking about before.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, but I do think that I've like partly because of just the kind of stuff that I'm good at and the stuff that I gravitate towards. I think that there's more indie artists in like the spaces that I'm in, and that's been like that is like a big part of my income.
Yeah,
and
I kind of want to talk a little bit about that, right? Because it's something that I was eventually going to bring up. But having a song come out with an independent artist that, like you said, like they own all their masters, and they usually end up giving the producers a bigger share of it, versus like having a song come out with huge major label artist X, where you get a $10,000, $20,000 fee, sometimes more, but you only have like 4 points on it, which for our listeners is like, depending on how you look at the math, it's like 4% of the master, sometimes less, sometimes more, depending on the deal with the artist. And you start to do that math, right? Where it's like, I've had artists I work with who are independent where, like I said, sometimes I have as much as like 25% or like 50% of the master.
Yeah.
And you do that. It doesn't take a smart person to like do that quick math and to see that like, this song, even though it was like quote unquote less successful than this major label song, I came out way fucking ahead with independent artists because I had more on their 20 million stream song versus this major label artist's 200 million stream song, unfortunately. And it really, Midi, I'm curious if you've had this happen before, where it's like you write a song with an indie artist, And I know this information, right? I'm like, this song is great. I know if it's independent artist releases it, we all might make more money. But now fucking Beyonce wants the song, you
Mhm.
know? How have you felt like you've balanced like opportunities like that and like talking about it with your other songwriters and or producers?
I mean, I ask everybody like, how do we feel about each option a little bit? Honestly, it's just like it's purely emotional. Honestly, it's just like you
Right.
go and you pour your heart out, and for someone to say "I want that" can feel a little bit violating at times, in my opinion. Usually, we're stoked. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then the artist, the person who's like their story, feels a little bit hurt sometimes, a little bit.
Yeah.
It can be a thing where at times they're really need it, so they're like, I'm down to get rid of it. I think that's not even a logical thought process 9 times out of 10. It's just purely like I don't want to sell this part of me. A lot of people can view it as selling out, but I
Yeah.
don't think that's what it is personally. I think you can take that stuff and you can further yourself with it. I do think that there are some songs that you're just like, this is my baby and I'll never give it up. And I think we only have a couple of those in us, to be honest with you. I think everything else, you're kind of kidding yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
I remember I was listening to I think a podcast with like Nick Nack and Bobby Brackens who did "Loyal" for Chris Brown, and that was a
Mm,
Bobby Brackens song.
right.
And Chris wanted it, same exact thing, and
Mm,
it was a discussion, and they had to figure it out, and it launched their careers.
yeah.
So it's
I
just like live to see another day. And what we talked about, like the success is getting up and being able to do this, and it lets you do that. Continue to tell your story and take the tool to be able to do that. In my personal opinion, but it's like what you said. You could get a job if you want to do this for money.
yeah.
It's just how you personally resonate with it, and I try to be very sensitive to that because you can't do this. You can't treat it like that. It's just like a great way to like burn out really quickly and hate it if you're just like, well, this is the better opportunity. It is going to make us money. My favorite songs I've ever been a part of were completely independent. And at some point, a lot of them like got upstreamed and like we believed in the song. And it's one of those things, like you said, it's people who could be on majors and could be successful and have the talent to do it. They just aren't yet. And I don't know, you have to have I think that's what A&Rs used to do. Some of them still do it,
Yeah.
but it's like take a chance on some shit. And sometimes you hear it and you're like, there's nobody who's gonna do this like you. And you have to trust that.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude,
Yeah.
we had the episode's not out yet, but Cats and Cuts producer was trio and now duo. They talked about how they became artists. How I don't want to ruin the story, but it was like that same kind of thing where they were like, "Yeah, we should pitch it out." And they were like, "You should put it out." And it's like, "Oh,
Mm.
like that's a very shortened version of the story. It's a much better story, I promise, listener." But I was kind of more thinking too, where it's like, man, I've had opportunities where you're like, okay, could go out with artists, smaller artists, potentially make us more money, or could go out to like it could be a Beyonce cut, not a single, right? Beyonce cut, just on the album. And the songwriters and a lot of other people too, they're it's a hard decision because you're weighing a lot of things, right? Not even like let's just like take the love of music out of it for a second. Let's talk purely music business, just to like stick with the podcast theme. Okay, I could make more money with independent artists, and that'd be good for me. I can eat, I can maybe work on some other passion projects, or I can, have, and I'm just using Beyonce as an example, nothing specific. I can release it on the Beyonce album, have it be like an album cut, won't really make me that much money, but I get to stamp that I have a Beyonce cut on my career card, and that can also bring me opportunities that
Yeah.
could make me more money in the long run. And this is like the things that it's like there's no right answer. It's like a thing that we always have to think about. And I'll let you guys answer this too, but how I usually pick those things is that's when I put back on my like creative music hat after. And I'm like, okay, if we have two versions, what version is really better? What do we actually think is gonna be better long term? And I try and go with my gut and be like, hey, sometimes, the Beyonce version, she killed it. And like, like maybe that it's because it's so good, maybe eventually it'll be a big hit. Or like, hey, independent artists, like that is their fucking song. And that could change our lives. Again, I'm just like pontificating here because there is no answer.
Mhm.
But I'm curious, like, I don't know, Jeremy, Midi, like, do you either you guys have any thoughts on that?
I I I've never like I've certainly never been in that position. I don't I've never really been like in any sort of like spaces where like we've like pitched songs, so I've never
Yeah.
really like had to decide between the X artist cuts it or
Yeah.
whatever someone keeps it. Surely in that situation though, we'd all be pushing for the Beyonce song, no? Like,
No,
come on.
right.
You'd be surprised.
But you'd be surprised, right? Because like she's also doing, some things there that are not that great sometimes deal wise.
Sure. Like, yeah, you're gonna get fucked, obviously. But like,
Yeah.
yes, I'm obviously yes. It depends on your situation, but like, I'm just thinking like
This is the conundrum where you're like, but it's a Beyonce cut that could change my life. Yeah.
I don't even mean like not financially. There's like the coolest thing to me that I've ever done is I did a Lil Wayne song and I made $1,500 from it. And like, but ask me, like, there's no other, there's songs that I've, been a part of that I've made tens of thousands, like hundreds of thousands, whatever. And ask me if I would trade which one I would get rid of. Obviously, it's not the Lil Wayne one. Like, that's like just the coolest shit ever to me. And so, like, obviously, if you're choosing between like, a C level artist, whatever, and putting it out independently, whatever, like, I see where there's like that's a hard decision. But like, surely if it's a Beyonce or if it's Rihanna or someone like that, like,
I know,
because that's what we're all trying to do. No, like you're trying to do like great shit.
Yeah.
I have a very specific thought on this.
Yeah, go for it.
I was at a party one time years ago and I ran into Omos Keith, who did a lot of the Frank Ocean stuff. And Kali Uchis, he's like a legend in his own right. And I asked him, I was like, you up and coming producer, like, what advice would you give me if I was in your shoes? And he used this as a great example, which is like, he told me is like, there's this misconception that you get a Beyonce cut or Rihanna cut and your life changes. And it's not necessarily true. Your year changes immediately. But then next year you could be right back in the same spot. Like it's a really untold thing in our industry that we don't talk about that often, but you are as relevant as your cuts from last year, usually.
Totally.
And you can use those as calling cards and stuff like that. But like he told me this thing is like, if you make the next Beyonce, you have a career for the rest of your life.
Yep.
Totally.
And when you think about these big people and you think about like big producers, like legends, like the Quincy Joneses and the Timbalands, you don't think of even songs. You think of like artists. You think of Michael Jackson, you think of Justin Timberlake and Missy Elliott. So if you have an artist that you believe they're going to do it and take the song and they're going to be the Beyonce, do that, in my opinion, honestly, because you'll be Phineas with Billy. Like that's
Right.
you become the
if
dynamic.
You have Phineas
duo.
with Billy, you have Dan Nigro with like Chapel and Olivia right now. Like, yeah, I mean those are the, go ahead, Jeremy.
I'm saying of course like having a random cut, like an album cut on a Justin Bieber album or whatever, of course, like does like not a ton for your career and doesn't make you a ton of money. But I'm saying for yourself. Like,
yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
Me, like again,
you happen to be a huge Lil Wayne fan, I'm assuming.
Yeah, like I'm just a big rap fan, and like Lil Wayne's like just one of the greatest rappers ever. And that's just also that's my touch point because that's just the most famous that I've ever worked with.
Yeah,
but like
I'd have a collar tat if I were you, dude. It'd say I have a Lil Wayne cut.
Like. That did nothing for my career.
Yeah.
But like I do music because like to like for lack of a better word, like I'm trying to like fulfill my dreams, Like I'm not like I said before, like like if I wanted to make a shit ton of money, like I wouldn't be in music. And
I was talking about that earlier, where it's like I had a guest here today who actually he runs an independent label, and he's like, yeah, you have all these guys who like they come into music think they're gonna make a bunch of money, and it's like you are in the wrong industry, my friend. Go into finance or like real estate. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is not.
But I guess I'm not saying like I totally agree. Like you need to, as far as building your business and building like your career, like the longevity of your career, like it is of course all about getting in on the ground level and building with artists. And like, for me, like that's once I started working with artists and building with some artists that had some success, like it was so much more, like it did so much more for my career, of course, than like anything else that I'd done. But like, there's a different level of fulfillment that I feel, I guess I just assumed, but I feel like we are all kind of chasing, of like fulfilling your like dreams of being a successful producer.
I know.
And I feel like
Jeremy,
sometimes you just
that's why I'm so glad you're here, because you've had like such the unique career where it was like you came up as like an artist, and then like you did like you work with like artists that you like, whether you realized it or not, like you kind of developed and you brought them up, and like you are kind of like what we're talking about, that like Phineas, that Dan Nigro, right? Where it's like you have your like people where like cool, like I brought these guys up, and like it's not an ego thing, but it's like I think your career is like the one that like I'm super jealous of personally, where I'm like, man, that guy fucking did the thing I would love to do. And it's like so fucking inspiring that you were able
I
like
appreciate that.
yeah,
Bless you.
no. It's like it's crazy, especially because you're so young too. But yeah, that's the thing. That's like I think what Minnie's trying to say too, where it's like, yeah, like you build someone's career and
Yeah.
like it's
I guess
both
I was talking
yeah.
about. I sorry to cut you off.
No,
I
go
was
ahead.
just saying the very isolated. Of course, like as a career philosophy, I 100% agree with you guys.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in the very isolated, like so maybe I'm getting like way too in the weeds
Sure.
here.
Yeah.
But like if we're choosing in one scenario between like a song, like it's just one song we're talking about, and
Yeah.
it can be a Beyonce song. It's like, I don't
He's
know.
using
Okay.
Jeremy's team Beyonce. No, that's the thing too. It's like I think also, and this is like a good teaching moment for our listener here, that there are sometimes, there was like the classic joke for years where I was like, oh, I got a Rihanna hold. Everyone had a Rihanna hold. You would get one. Yeah, you get one. It was for so long. And like I had one too for a while. And it was like one of my favorite songs I've ever fucking done.
Yeah.
Like the song that I felt so good about, like me and the other writers that we wrote it with were like, fuck, this one is so good. And like Rihanna, there was like a hold on it. And, we were like saying no to other opportunities. And then it got to a point where like it sucked. I don't know if it missed other opportunities or whatnot, but it was like a 2 or 3 year thing where like they had it or like they were like, well, she might cut it, but we'll see and blah, blah, blah. And eventually we gave it to someone else and it came out and it's doing pretty well. But it was like, it was such like you will hold on to opportunities like that for so long because you're like, fuck, a Rihanna cut. Or like,
Yeah.
I even like, maybe I shouldn't say it, but I don't fucking care. Like I had like a potential hold on like the last Beyonce album and like, same with that. It's like how that works. It's like you don't find out until the fucking day the album comes out. So, and that's been in like Billboard articles. So I feel comfortable saying that out loud. But like, sometimes it like that's the other thing about these like huge artists. It's like so much of it. It's not like a regular cut where you're super involved and like you're in the know. Like artists like that, the bigger the artist, like the less you find out, the less they're telling you, the more fucking annoying it is, the more hoops you have to jump through. And that's why, again, I want to kind of end this topic here, but like that's what makes, for young producer, young songwriter, young artist listening, that's what makes these decisions so tough. And there's no right answer. And you're going to get like today, you're going to get a different answer from every different producer and songwriter, like what you should do, because it's like, we're all just winging it at the end of the day, which is really.
I'll say this too. If I had a nickel for every time I made the wrong choice, I wouldn't have to make music anymore.
Yeah, right.
It's such a thing. Yeah, honestly, yeah. So it's what what Justin said. Honestly, Jeremy, the way you did it is probably the ideal way to do it. Honestly.
Well, I appreciate that.
Midi, I'm curious if you've had any other luck or income streams, like not just like royalties and publishing and stuff, but like do you make any like sample packs? Do you do any kind of like other things in the music industry or music related that you make some money from?
Probably should. Honestly, like it would be the smart thing to do for sure.
Yeah, it's time
You
consuming.
know the phrase "work smart, not hard." I'm like just now learning about this.
Yeah.
A little bit. No, it's been a lot of just grinding, to be honest with you. I've never had a real job. Every gig I've ever had has been in audio. Like I think my first job was a boom operator for like short films when I was like 16, which was super illegal. It was like technically child labor. But it was one of those things where I just like knew how to do one thing and it was just like work myself to the bone. Don't recommend it. Don't recommend it. I think everybody should learn about diversification within music, especially today. If I'm grateful for one thing, it's for having kind of gotten in this when I did a little bit. If you told me like, hey, like get into music in 2025, you kind of have to, unless you just get really lucky, in my opinion. Or if you're just so good that people recognize you off jump. So for me, at least, no, it's mainly just been production for my entire adult life, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. I mean, dude, it's like even the biggest of biggest producers, like look at Benny fucking Blanco, like he's doing cookbooks. Like you have every single other like producer like making, their own plugins now. Like everyone is kind of like getting into that game of being like, okay, I mean, myself, it's like, why? I mean, listen, this podcast is not making any money yet. Hopefully, it will one day. I don't know. But it's trying to get into other things. I know so many mixers now that in order to like get more work, they're like doing, like content creation. They're like teaching, about mixing and stuff. And like that's getting them clients. I know producers who are like on there, waiting for them to sell beats is like they'll post the beats on fucking TikTok. And like like that, and they're no names. They'll post it on TikTok and they'll post it on Instagram and be like, yo, who wants this beat? Like, fuck, just
Yeah.
like taking risks. It's like you have to kind of think outside the box a little bit and like take those risks. I myself, I've made a spice pack back in the day that like, made me some decent money, nothing like too fucking crazy. It wasn't like a great pack. But past guest Eric Palmquist, he's was involved in making. You guys know those heat drum samples?
Hmm.
Yeah, they're really fucking good. And like he was involved in making those. He like engineered them and it was done at his studio. And I don't know, there's another past guest, Alina from Lyre Music. Like she like mostly focuses on like K-pop and J-pop and stuff. It has some like random other cuts, but like she's like full on content creating now and she's like super happy. She's just like,
Hmm.
yeah, like I don't know, I love what I'm doing. And like she's like, I don't miss chasing like those cuts anymore. Like, and she's like doing really well. So with all that being for like the listener, where it's like there's not one way to do it, and I think the more kind of darts you're throwing at the board, it can make you be a full-time music producer, like no matter what that means. Now I'm at the point in my career. I worked regular jobs. I had other jobs, and like I never want to do any other work but besides doing work in music. I can't imagine. I don't care what that means. Whether I'm producing for fucking Rihanna or if I'm producing, music for like a TV show. I don't care. I just want to be doing music. And, that's all that matters at the end of the day.
I
I
was
was gonna say there's a guy I follow named John Wayne who all he does is make boom bap beats on an octatrack, and
that
it's so entertaining. And he funds his whole life off of Patreon, basically.
Yeah.
And he just like puts the beats he does up on his Patreon as like a tiered thing. You don't have to buy the beats; it's just like a part of the subscription. And he makes probably more money than a lot of people trying to do it.
I was basically about to say the same thing that
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have seen, at least from my perspective, a huge uptick in producer content creators. Like, I
Mhm.
feel like I mean, you're literally doing it right now, Justin. There was maybe like a few years ago, there was a wave of where producers realized the way to make money that's not like producing songs is doing sample packs. And then now every producer knows that, and now incredibly oversaturated, whatever. And I feel like I notice a big wave of producers being content creators. Yeah, either like, directing people to Patreon or just, I see there's so many like super esoteric, like gear YouTube channels, but that are like not just tutorials, they're entertainment. Like they're like very cinematic, like storytelling, but about like really esoteric gear. Because I think partly because there's just so many producers, like there's just so many producers now that I feel like producers are realizing that there's enough producers that is like a market in and of itself is just,
I mean, it's
entertaining other
so
producers.
technology has made it so easy to produce, and it's only going to get easier with AI tools coming in. And that means
Yeah.
it's going to be, it's already the most competitive it's ever been, in my opinion. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, I tell songwriters the same thing, where it's like, you got to figure out how to make money other than like just being a songwriter, like be an artist yourself, teach songwriting things. It's just, you have to do it. We're in such a different climate. Like until we can like honestly, my solution is like raise Spotify's prices and then change how publishing is paid out. It's like that's just kind of what it is right now, unfortunately.
Mhm.
I wanted to talk a little bit. This is like kind of the last topic here before we wrap. How to stay relevant and like that, like I said, such a rapidly changing industry. How to adapt to like trends and technology and all that. Midi, I want to start with you. How do you feel like you can stay relevant for, another 5, 10 years?
I think it's a very careful balance of working on surefire bets and taking risks, in my opinion. And it's the risks that are going to do it. you can't only take risks because you have a small chance of becoming completely destitute if it doesn't work pay out. I don't know how your luck goes, but I know how mine does. And I have to do some surefire stuff every now and again. Like you said, like I will take that Beyonce cut if it'll let me do like, if let me find Tate McRae, you know what I mean?
Right.
But it's that honestly, I'm just like constantly trying to find one thing at least a year that's pretty damn buzzy. And I think it's like that's my whole thing is like once a year. If you could do it every year or every other year, you can stay relevant as long as you still want to like, chase cuts and bust your ass and all this good stuff. But like staying relevant in that way and also just learning how to streamline more and more and more, I think is you get older, it becomes hard to play the stamina game. Like when, like I've been doing this professionally as my only source of income since I was like 18. And when I'm 38, I don't know if I'll have the stamina to keep up with a 16-year-old who's making beats on a phone. You know what I mean? I don't know
Right.
if that's going to be the case. So it's just like, let's streamline things. I think it's why you see dudes when they get older and they have teams of people behind them and they have friends that they send ideas to. And it's just like, it becomes a community really quickly, in my opinion. And it's to lean on that community is really, really important. I load my homies up with ideas all the time for the times I can't be in 7 sessions in a week and vice versa. Send me stuff we all eat together if we work as a team. It's a very singular activity being a producer. Songwriters, I find, are way more of a community than a lot of producers. You're a godsend for doing this, honestly, in my opinion. There's not enough of us doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
I
I
think if
mean,
we all help each other out, we'll get there quicker.
yeah, it's just like it's like a ideology of like maybe because publishing isn't worth that much anymore, but everyone's just like, yeah, let's bring in this person and whatever. And then it's like, I don't care about my production fee as much as other people. I'm always down to co-produce or like have someone finish something. I always want what's best for the song, but I know there's too many producers where it's like we're all out here trying to eat and just be like, well, I know the budget is $5,000, and if I start bringing other people in, I'm gonna have to start splitting that $5,000. And it's like I get that instinct. I really, really, really do. But it's very short term
Yeah,
thinking,
100%.
unfortunately. And
That's so about
Jerry, I want to go to
producer.
you. Then I'm
Oh,
going to give
sorry, go
my
ahead.
2 cents out. No, I said I want to go to you, and then I'm going to give my 2 cents after.
This is like I have like 2 producer friends. Like I don't like all my friends are like artists. Like I don't know any producers because like it is that's such a thing specifically in pop too. Like because obviously in rap, like the producers linking network, that's the entire industry. Like that's all they do is just hang out with other producers and collaborate. That's literally you can't be a rap producer without doing that. And in pop, it's like the total opposite because you just are the one dude that's producing and engineering in your own studio. So you just to me, like I only hang out with artists, And sorry, that doesn't answer your question, but
Yeah.
that is something I was thinking about before I came on
Yeah.
this podcast. I'm like, this is like gonna be like one of the only times this year that I talk to other producers.
I need more
which is
producer
so-
friends. It's
I
so-
know, seriously. But as far as staying relevant, I assume that's what you're
Yeah, yeah.
gonna throw to me. And obviously I don't have like a ton of like I haven't been in the music industry for like long enough to like really give like a super nuanced take on that. But I will say when I made my way into like the like industry, so to speak, like when I started producing for major label artists and signed a publishing deal and record deal, whatever, all that stuff, like it was like doing lo-fi, which was a genre that people were really excited about and did not go where the labels and stuff were expecting it to go. And like I went through like a little mini like full career arc of being like, everyone was hitting me up. I got so much shit thrown my way, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And it slowly petered off. It didn't turn into the genre that, labels thought it was going to turn into. And nobody was hitting me up. And I was like, I kind of like sneaky falling off a little bit. And I had to, I had to pivot to like, luckily I was able to find stuff that I love. And I basically pivoted to like doing like folk, like acoustic stuff. And that some of that stuff kind of took off. So I guess the lesson that I personally learned from that and that I would implore other producers is to not kind of know when it's time to fold them as far as like on a project or a genre or just whatever vibe, like know when it's not it and when to pivot and find something that you're both good at and will keep you, doing your thing. Because
Dude,
if I was still
it's
making
so
lo-fi
true.
beats, we wouldn't be talking right
Not gonna lie, that's That's some of the realest shit I have ever heard as far as being a producer. Because when the EDM bubble burst, I thought my life was over, dude. I thought that was it for me. When Future started going crazy, I was like, oh, I'm done. This is it. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
really, really real. That's a great piece of advice.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. It's like knowing when it's like, okay, this thing I've done pretty well in is like, the trends are changing. I can keep making lo-fi music forever, sure, but like who's gonna want to listen to that? Yeah, it's I saw it. I mean, I've been doing this now in LA for 10 years, and like you start to notice the producers who adapted and the ones who didn't. Like the ones who
Mhm.
were like, I'm still making the same beats I made, these like super pop 2010s style music that I made 10 years ago. And it's like, buddy, what are we
Yeah.
doing? I just got a,
Yeah.
little story from that. I just got a track from an artist where like these producers like produce it out for her. And they're producers that had success kind of in that era, that like 2010s era. And I listened to it and I'm like, and I told her, I was like, the top line's great. The record's really cool. But I was like, these sounds are all from like 10 years ago. And I was like, when did they do this? She's like, oh, we did it last year. I'm like, what what are we doing? And it's like and like those guys, and I'm trying not to, I don't want to call them out obviously, but like they haven't had a big or like a decent song come out in a long time. And I feel like it's because they probably haven't like sat down and been like, what we did before was great and it's not cool anymore. And
Yeah.
I don't know if they just like don't have the ability to, or they're stubborn to like change, but like I'm always personally, this is my take on it. I'm always trying to change. I'm always, as many as you said, like I'm always trying to have my ear to the ground. For the first couple of years, I was always like searching the wrong Spotify playlist. I would be searching like, all the pop playlists of like artists that are already signed, that are already doing the thing. And I'd be like, well, I gotta get in with them because they're having a fucking moment. And that never got me fucking anywhere. And what did get me places was like putting my ear lower to the ground, scrolling on Instagram, scrolling on TikTok, going on like the super early playlists, like what are some of the new ones, like next gen whatever songwriter, next gen artist, like those are the playlists that I tend to look at and be like, cool, let me listen and see if I hear anything here. And those are the artists that I work with the most, to be quite honest. The ones that like are
Mhm.
definitely like they're the biggest risks. Like I was saying earlier,
Mhm.
they're the ones that like maybe they can't pay you your full production fee, and like that's okay. And you try and stick around for the long term because if you're doing that, you're not chasing trends. You're trying to be the next trend, and that's been the biggest thing for my career. The second I stopped doing that and I started trying to like work with people, I think, ooh, I think you're dope, and no one really knows it yet.
Yeah.
Like for
I
me,
think
like,
one underrated thing too is also going to shows. If you have the ability to
yep,
be in a place that's a really
yep,
like a hub for entertainment, like if you have the privilege of being in LA, go to the Troubadour, go to, school night, go to these places, go to hit the Jesse and Friends and make friends with people and
yep,
see who's up and coming. Because I've noticed a disconnect too sometimes because we do have to take these chances and bets, and you might make a cool record, but it doesn't always translate after the fact. Like I've worked on a few things I thought were cool that just don't. If you can't be a superstar on stage, it just won't work long term,
yep,
and that can be a problem. And there's certain people I'll go out and see, and I don't expect much, and I cry at their show, or I'm
yep.
like gassed for the rest of the month, and I'm like, I'll bet any amount of money those people at some point, if they keep going, will make it. I feel like that's lost a little bit now, but it still holds true, and it's still every time I've gone to see somebody that's budding, and I feel that way, they pop.
Yeah, dude, I mean, it is true. It's like also going, like you said, like not even going to like random shows, but going to the shows. Like I always try and tell artists to play shows as often as they can, but going like taking the time to go out and see like artists that you're just working with to like understand who they are live is so important because it
Yep.
actually helps inform the music. And also, like you said, it you kind of see who the real stars are really quickly. That doesn't mean someone can't
Mhm.
develop their live show and become better, because I've
Yep.
seen that happen
Mhm.
too. But like, I had the opportunity to work with like Benson Boone super early on. I was
Mhm.
literally, I think, his second or third session ever. And that kid to me is like, I've told the story a couple times where it's like, I've met two people in my life super early on. When I met them, I was like, you're a fucking star. And it was Benson and Billie Eilish.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so I always knew with Benson, but I had the opportunity to go to like his like first like LA show, and I saw that kid play live. And I
Mhm.
shit you not, it was like a small room, maybe like 100 something people in there. And I was never so sure that someone was going to be a fucking star after that, after I saw his show, where you're just like, oh my fucking God, you are a star. You know exactly who you are. And like, I know how to make music with you even better now
Oh yeah.
because like
hmm
I see like also it's just like seeing how he was interacting with like the young girl fans. And you're just
hmm
like, oh, I see what we're doing here. Like that's the lane. Where it's like you don't get that when you're just like in a room with him. You don't think like, oh yeah, like he's like the one that like all the the teenage girls are gonna love. Anyway, I could swoon about Benson for hours. I love that child
Okay, that's
so
sick.
much. But I want to go to our last little segment here. We have a couple listener questions.
hmm
And I got to pull up my phone here because it's on my phone. First question is from Alex Billowitz. How rich does my dad have to be to get my career going?
I would argue it's better if your dad is dirt poor, personally.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're an artist, it'll help, but I don't think as a producer, it's a huge. I mean, obviously, like being financially stable helps,
Mhm.
but
I,
oh
I
god,
I
Alex.
think if your dad is rich enough to where you can just focus on music, that's as rich as he has to be,
Yeah, yeah.
honestly.
That's what I was gonna say. Like I often, or certainly when I was on my like on my real artist grind on TikTok and stuff, I faced lots of nepo baby allegations. I
Yeah.
guess I just like
Mm,
look like a nepo baby. I don't know. And like definitely not. Like my parents are like so down the middle, like middle class, but like that's a huge leg up on not having parents who are middle class. Like just this the like to do anything in music takes like a obviously huge amount
mhm.
of risk and there's not many careers that are less guaranteed. This whole podcast we've been talking about how even when you're successful you don't make money and most people
Yeah.
aren't even successful.
Yeah.
So anyway, like it's a lot easier to take that risk when you know you can move back home even if it's not
100%.
Oh,
mansion.
yeah, yeah,
Like
no.
that is you do need that a little bit
Yeah.
or like and I know not everyone has it and I know Midi, you had like a fucking crazy ass story and you're like really like the exception but like I don't come across many people in LA in music that are from like a poor background, you know? Like
Yeah, no, it's just
yeah.
harder. It's just like it's the numbers game, and like I like that we took this dumb question seriously,
Oh, dude,
but
it's actually something I talk about a lot.
yeah,
I hate the Nepo baby conversation. I don't
yeah,
think it's valid at all
yeah,
because I've worked with so many rich kids who suck so hard.
yeah,
And then you see like Gracie Abrams and like
yeah,
Clara who are classified as like Nepo babies. And they're my favorite artists. Like, and I love them. What them, their parents or their families or however they got into it being successful brought us is an amazing artist who may or may not have the opportunity to pursue music full time. So if there's somebody who you respect their craft and they work hard and they do the thing, I'm so glad that they come from like a background where they can support it. Like I think
yeah.
it's not something to be shamed whatsoever.
No,
If you can do it, like grind and be good. If you suck, we'll tell you. Like the
yeah.
world will let you know.
What I always like said too, I always like, man, I get like my grinds gears grinded about Nepo babies too, because I'm the same way where it's like talent is talent, and it's like yes, we can there can be two things true at the same time, where it's like yes, they had an easier time than someone who wasn't. Didn't have rich or famous parents, but also that person can still be very talented. Because like Mitty, it's like I've worked with fucking plenty of rich people who had famous parents who did not have fucking careers because they sucked.
Yeah.
They have just as much of a chance at like as anyone else at the end of the day, and it's like talent always trumps whatever. And then like you know
100%.
what? Even speaking of Billy, funny enough, is that like there are people who think she's a nepo baby
No, I
because
see
like
that's so silly.
it's so stupid. Like her parents, I guess her mom was an actress, but she was like a working like lower middle class actress, to be quite honest. Like they were
Yeah.
living in Highland Park when Highland Park was like gang infested. Like
Yeah.
what do you and it's just like you see the stories of like their parents were rich and they had connections where it's like people just want to stir shit up and they're angry about their own shit and they
Yeah.
just like
100%.
they want to like blame other things for why they weren't successful in music or acting.
Dude, you know what I think of when I work with a Nepo baby who's fucking awesome? I'm like,
Yeah.
we can probably get a string arrangement on this demo from your
Right.
dad.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like, cool. I can get real drums and real everything now. This is going to be
100%. It
sick.
means this is gonna be sick.
All right. Next listener question here. We kind of answered it a little bit, but I answered it, but maybe Midi, you have some answers here. What are some, this is from Adam Turley Music. What are some solid strategies for finding and working with new artists?
Go outside and scour the internet.
Yeah.
Honestly, like a little bit of both. You have to do, in my opinion. Again, like there's some people who just have different mentalities than you about it, and you can't assume that people are going to think that the way that you would promote music and the way that you find music is going to be how you're going to find them. Go on TikTok, feed your algorithm with music stuff and like new up and coming things, and like trust your friends who have good taste to you. If they tell you something's dope and cool, also have a homie that has like a little sister that is like scouring weird shit with her friends. I remember I had like my ex's little sister tell me that Glaive was going to be the biggest thing like 4 years before he actually popped or some shit. It was like crazy. And I remember being like, sure. And then it did. And I was like, and every time it works. I've learned this too. Every dope A&R, the actual A&R is their 13-year-old.
Yep, dude.
You know,
I was
yeah.
having like I have a she's 16 now, geez, but like young like nieces and nephews, and like hopefully my own kid eventually, just be like, yo, you heard of this? It's like
100%.
of course I fucking have it. Show me it. Like that's yeah, and like honestly, that's who we're making music for a lot of time are that age group. Like they're the ones who are like pushing the trend, pushing the
You know who
trends and
doesn't buy music? 22-year-olds in
Yep.
college.
No,
They don't. Straight up.
they might buy tickets, but you know who buys more tickets? Those girls' parents. Like,
Give me a stand.
I
Yeah,
know,
100%.
right? I know. My wife always jokes because she was like one of those like kids at 8 years old. Like she was like hugest Backstreet Boy fan. It's like buying all their merch and buying all their tickets. All right, I got one little last listener question, but it's actually from our intern Nate, who actually had a dip. But Nate asks, and maybe this is more a question for me, maybe Midi, but you're still a young man. How to approach this career for people starting later in their life?
Don't let it affect you whatsoever. And just like be a fan of music, in my opinion. Like love what you're doing. It's just so easy to be jaded and be like, I'm too old to do this. And then there's kids who are doing this at such a crazy level, so young. You know, like if you're my age, you might look at Jeremy and be like, fuck. You know what I mean? It's just like, it just happens. You know
I
what I
do
mean?
look at
But you
Jeremy and
just gotta
say,
get up,
fuck.
love it. Honestly. Don't worry
Jeremy,
about it. Dan Agro is 40.
I know. Jeremy, how old are you again?
I'm 24.
Yeah,
Can I offer
fuck.
a little bit of perspective
Yes.
from the youngest one of the three of us?
Yes, please.
That it's kind of funny to ask that question, Nate, as a producer, because I feel like as in terms of obviously the music industry skews young relative to other industries, but like nobody has more leeway like to be old than producers, male producers. Like nobody cares how old you are. Like there's so many dope producers that are hit their stride and peak when they're like 48, you know, or in their 40 or 50, or like one of the producers that I worked with a ton when I was an artist is Mike Crossy, who's like 50. And I never was once like, oh, like this, I'm like, this is the dopest producer ever. And so I really don't think that I honestly think that a lot of artists like to work with older producers in my experience. Cause like you see the producer role as like the, like all knowing like dad of the session, you know? So I think like you're honestly in a pretty good spot. Like as far as music industry, there's just not, there's not a much of a better spot to be in than a producer as far as being worried about.
It's funny if you like, if you look at like the top 20, 30 records at any given time, it's like, maybe this is a patriarchal thing that we have to get rid of, but you look at them and it's like most of the producers are like guys in their late 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
It's and it's, you know, I don't know if you want to say it's experience or if we just, you know, those guys get those opportunities because they've been doing it for a while. But I do think like the producer, at least like having constant success is a long-term game. And it comes from like doing it for like not even the 10,000 hours, like 100,000 hours of being like, cool, I've done this. I think I know what a hit is. I think I know how to get the sound, like learning how to engineer, you know, like even me, like I did have a later start. I was always doing music, but like I didn't move out to LA until I was 25 when I moved out to LA to be doing music full time. And I thought when I moved out here at 25, I thought I was fucking old. I was like, man, like I'm getting such a late start, but I'm so thankful. I don't think I was ready when I was younger, when I was 18, 19, doing the thing personally. Like that it's different for everyone. But me personally, I wasn't ready. And, you know, I know plenty of guys who were like live players for years and they, you know, Falconry, another producer, like
Drew DeCaro, let's
yeah,
go.
Drew, fucking he was on the podcast this season. His episode will be out. Like, you know, he didn't get his start as a producer till later, but he was like that classic example. Like he was just playing live and doing music, and then because of certain opportunities, he was like kind of pushed to start producing, and like he's doing the thing.
I have one last thought about that thing, too,
Okay.
in my opinion.
Go.
I would say something about starting later on in life is if you are 18 and you have a song that gives you $1 million, good luck developing like a normal person after that, unless you have the biggest will in the world, in my opinion. The thing that people don't talk about with young success is the internal conflict that comes with the ups and downs, in my opinion. There's a reason why they say you're gonna eat shit for 10 years, in my opinion. It's kind of to fortify these ups and downs that happen a little bit. There's nothing that stings more than seeing like young talented producer in your bio and then somebody on your team changes it to talented producer. Shit stings like really bad.
Oh my God, that never happened to me, but that would be so bad. Oh my God.
Oh, I remember when I went from being the youngest kid in the room to the oldest.
Yeah.
And I had to figure out my internal conflicts with that. And so being a little later in life can give you a couple advantages. And also what you said earlier was super true about the patriarchy thing. I think we do need to be a little bit more mindful about people of all ages and women especially being able to do this shit, because like so many of my collaborators are, when I work with Lauren Christie a ton, and she's one of the most legendary people I've ever worked with, honestly. And like, it would be a shame if we didn't get her talent just because of that, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, last question here is my own question. Curious if you guys have it yet. How do we feel about Serum 2?
Man, I like had to like stop working for the day, honestly. So much stuff to dive into, honestly. I think the engine sounds way better. I think the presets that it comes with are sick. Like the reverb was unusable. I'm sorry, I don't care who was using Serum FX before. It's just like sounded crazy a little bit. It's practical sound wise. It is quite a bit more to wrap your head around, but I think you give it a week, and if you're a nerd, you'll get it.
Yeah, Jeremy, you a Serum user?
Yes, in the past, yes. These days I pretty much only use Serum to use for sub basses. I use it for a sine wave pretty much. I haven't used Serum 2 yet. My TikTok, all it is just Serum 2 content. Serum 2, so I've been meaning to dive in. I just got back from a writing trip, so I didn't have time, but that's probably on the docket for next week.
I like that it was a free upgrade. I would have bought it if it wasn't, but it's a free upgrade, which I think is see?
Free if you have Serum.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll get it right now. Yeah, my quick take on it is I haven't like done like such a super deep dive, but immediately. It's why I never really liked Serum, because it sounded like a soft synth that was and like when I want that sound, I want that sound. Yeah. But when I opened up Serum 2, I was like, oh, like this to me, it's like the closest to an analog synth that I've heard on a computer so far.
I mean, dude, half the keyboards in this far right are before 1985 for that reason. I feel you.
Right. Yeah, and it's like I have my Juno here. I have a couple other random, like funny little random ones, but like it's like I got that kind of same feeling where it's like, oh, like it's like that low mid depth thing that only real synths are able to do, and it was the first time where I was like, oh, maybe they finally done it. Who knows? We'll see. I'm like really curious to deep in.
So what we were talking about before, I saw a video of Steve Duda talking about the free update, and he was talking about it, and dude made millions off of Serum alone. Yeah. And like, not a lot of people know about his dance music background. He was fully ready, and he put that money into developing Serum 2. And I think this is what pushes the music industry forward, is he said, I could have just retired, but I couldn't do that to the community that supported me. So I have to give back and move along the zeitgeist a little bit, you know what I mean? And push it forward. And I think if we all think about that a little bit more, we'll all stay relevant. We'll all do the things if you do it for the love of the game a little bit. And that dude went above and beyond. But like, if we just had that mentality, we'd all be in a better position for the next generation.
Yeah. Well, one day we can only hope. Well, guys, we're going to wrap here. Thank you so much to Midi and Jeremy, aka Sarcastic Sounds. Like, you guys I value your opinions so much. And take care, guys.
Thanks for having us. Got you.
Thanks for tuning in to Producer Points. Your support means the world to us. If you enjoyed this episode, Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and share with fellow music enthusiasts. For an encore, check out our Spotify playlist featuring all the songs we've discussed on the show, giving you the perfect soundtrack to your creative journey. Additional audio and video editing for this episode was done by Nathan Rebello. Until next time, this is Justin Gammella.